Okay, great. So now that we have the inventory number showing up color-coded here according to our conditional formatting rules, I want to add one other visual element to complement the background color. And what this will be is a small image or an icon next to this field to indicate the same information as the background color. I've gone ahead and added this images folder, which has three icons in it, a check mark, a down arrow, and an up arrow. And these will sort of indicate the same information as our red, green colors, and then the plain transparent background. So let's go ahead and close that up. Now in a real report, I most likely would not use both the color and the icon to represent the same information, but I'll do that here just to illustrate another powerful technique with expressions, and that is something known as custom bindings. Now custom bindings are actually very much like the custom expressions that we learned about earlier. The difference is that they can be applied to properties on an element which normally don't accept an expression for the value. To see what I mean by that, let's scroll over here to our in-house field. And if you remember, the value of this we set to a custom expression. We can see that down here in the value field, our expression was set to our own custom function that we wrote. And we can do this because the value property accepts an expression, and the expression engine allows us to use our own custom functions like this here. However, if we look at most of the other properties on this text box, for example, the visible property right here underneath value, you notice that the editor for this doesn't actually allow us to enter an expression. We can only select true or false. It doesn't even give us the option. So if we wanted to add some custom logic for determining whether or not the element should be visible, we can't do it. Now, this is where custom bindings come in. So to start, let's go ahead and add an image element to our report. So over here in the toolbox, I'm going to choose the picture box control. And I'm going to go ahead and add this to the detail section here. So I'm just going to resize things here to make this fit next to this field. So let me make this a little smaller. Move the picture box over. Resize it to about there. And then I'll just take the detail and move it back up. Okay, so to use the picture box, what you do is you select it and you set the value property to an image file on your computer. Now notice that the value here is not like the value on the text box. If I click the ellipsis for this property, I don't get an expression editor. It opens up a file picker dialog. So this isn't going to work for the case that we're trying to do here. We want this to use one of three different images depending on the values of the quantity, safety level, and reorder point fields. So to get started, let's pretend that we can use the same technique that we used in the case of the make flag field over here. And let's just go ahead and write a C# function that performs the necessary logic and returns an appropriate value. In this case, it'll be an image. So I'm going to switch over to the custom expressions class here. And we're going to add another method. And once again, this is going to be a public static method. This is going to return an image. And we'll go ahead and import that namespace in system.drawing. And we'll go ahead and call this function getInventoryImage. And this is going to need to take three parameters. And it's going to be those three values we're going to need as integers. So we're going to need the reorder point, the safety level, and the quantity in inventory. So to save a bit of time here, I'll just go ahead and paste in the body of this function, as well as a constant here, which will give us the path to the images folder. Now in a real system, I would probably make this value a config value, or maybe use some convention and have the code automatically determine the path based on where it's running or something like that. But anyway, if we look at this code down here, what this does is simply make the same comparisons we did in the conditional formatting demo. So if the quantity is less than the reorder point, then we're going to return the down arrow image. If the quantity is above the safety level, then we return the up arrow icon. And then otherwise we just return the check icon, indicating that the stock is in the normal range. So with this function in place, let's go ahead and save and build the code here. And we got this error path that does not exist in current context. I forgot to import the system.io namespace, so let's pull that in. There we go. And I'll build again. Okay, our build succeeded that time. So let's go ahead and switch back to the designer here. So to make use of this new function, let's go ahead and select the text box. Now we can't use it directly for the value property as we saw before. So instead what we do is we go to this bindings property here. So let's open the bindings dialog. And from here it's pretty straightforward. We'll create a new binding. And when we do that, you can see we have the choice of all of the properties that we want to use as a binding. Notice that we have basically all of the properties available to us, including all of the style properties, as you can see here. So this means that you could actually use custom bindings instead of conditional formatting if you want to conditionally control the styling of items. Although I will say that the conditional formatting feature is usually a more straightforward way to do that. So unless there's some reason you can't use conditional formatting, I would use that first for controlling styling. But anything else that you want to bind that doesn't allow an expression, you can use a custom binding. So in our case, we're going to choose the value property. And now it's just as if the value property let us use an expression in the first place. So we'll simply open the expression editor here and use our custom function. Again, to do that, I'll expand functions, and we'll choose miscellaneous functions here. And we'll choose our custom expressions class. There's our new function that we just created, get inventory image. So let's add that. And now all we need to do is add these three parameters, which are the values of our fields. So we'll choose our fields, and we're going to pass the reorder point, and then the safety stock level, and finally the quantity. And that's it. So I'll go ahead and say OK to these dialogues. We'll save here and go ahead and preview the report again. So we'll choose a product line. Let's choose our mountain bikes and go ahead and preview. And there we have it. We have our picture box now displaying the appropriate icon based on the inventory levels. You can see these ones here are all low. These ones here at the beginning are high. Let's go ahead and scroll through. We have much more low ones. Here we go. We have some that are low, some that are in the normal range, some that are low, some that are high. We have this one here that appears to be wrong. We have a green background with a check mark, and I believe that's because we have exactly 100, and I didn't put the exact same logic in both. In my conditional formatting, I use greater than or equal to, and in my custom expression over here, I just used greater than, so that was a mistake on my part. But hopefully you can see the power in this feature. With custom bindings, you can customize just about anything in your report using your own code in a straightforward, pretty easily understandable way.